You're struggling, really struggling, and someone looks at you with that smile, the one that doesn't reach their eyes, and says, just think positive, or good vibes only, or everything happens for a reason. And something inside you recoils, not because you're negative, but because they just dismiss your pain with a platitude. Or worse, you catch yourself doing it. Someone shares something difficult, and before they finish speaking, you're already rushing to fix it with optimism. At least you have your health. It could be worse. You watch their face close. You've shut them down with positivity, with care disguised as cruelty. And here's what should awaken you. This isn't kindness. This is what Carl Jung called psychic numbing, the refusal to integrate darkness, disguised as light. We're drowning in what looks like wellness but functions as oppression, a culture that weaponizes positivity to avoid feeling anything real. That mistakes emotional bypassing for emotional intelligence, that has convinced itself that denying pain is the same as transcending it. Jung spent decades studying how the psyche fragments when we refuse to acknowledge our shadow. What he discovered reveals why toxic positivity isn't just annoying, it's psychologically destructive. Why forced optimism creates the very suffering it claims to prevent. Why people who can't sit with darkness end up becoming it. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to spot toxic positivity in yourself and others, why it's devastating, and how to embrace genuine acceptance instead. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." What did he mean? In his therapeutic practice, he witnessed people trying to bypass suffering through spiritual bypassing, positive thinking, and denial of their shadow. They believed that acknowledging pain would make them weak, that darkness should be eliminated, not integrated, that the path to wholeness meant pretending the broken parts didn't exist. Today, this dynamic has become an entire industry. Wellness culture that sells you good vibes only. Social media that demands you choose happiness. Self-help that pathologizes sadness as negativity. You're told that if you're not thriving, manifesting, glowing, you're failing at life. Watch what toxic positivity does in real time. Someone shares that they're depressed. The response? Have you tried gratitude journaling? Someone mentions anxiety. Just don't worry about it. Someone's grieving. They're in a better place now. Each response invalidates the emotion, denies the experience, and implies that feeling bad is a choice. But here's what's actually happening. Toxic positivity isn't optimism. It's avoidance. It's a refusal to sit with discomfort, yours or others. It's using positivity as a weapon against the parts of human experience that require integration, not elimination. Have you noticed this? The way people, maybe you, can't tolerate any emotional expression that isn't upbeat? The compulsion to fix, minimize, or redirect whenever something difficult emerges. This is the first mechanism, but it goes deeper. Toxic positivity is unintegrated darkness masquerading as light. The person who can only tolerate positive emotions hasn't transcended negativity. They're terrified of it, and that terror leaks out as toxic positivity. Jung observed, the shadow is that which you refuse to see about yourself. In his analysis, he saw how people who aggressively promoted positivity were often running from their own unprocessed pain. Unable to face their darkness, they couldn't tolerate anyone else's either. Positivity became their defense mechanism. Today, we've institutionalized this avoidance. Entire movements built on manifesting in high vibrations that treat sadness, anger, or grief as failure states. As if acknowledging struggle makes you a low vibration person who attracts negativity. Think about the last time you felt genuinely sad and someone told you to just be grateful. Notice what that did. It didn't lift you up, it made you feel worse. Guilty for feeling, ashamed of your humanity. Because toxic positivity doesn't heal pain. It adds shame to it. Now you're not just sad, you're sad about being sad. Here's what Jung understood that most people miss. You cannot heal what you won't acknowledge. You cannot integrate what you deny. Toxic positivity doesn't transcend darkness. It buries it alive. And what's buried alive doesn't die. It festers. It grows. It eventually erupts as the very breakdown the positivity was meant to prevent. Have you felt this? That pressure to perform happiness even when you're breaking inside? This is why toxic positivity creates the suffering it claims to eliminate. Toxic positivity is a refusal to be present with suffering. There's a reason people deploy toxic positivity. It's not because they care too much. It's because they can't bear to feel. Viktor Frankl wrote, "An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior." In concentration camps, he witnessed those who tried to maintain artificial positivity often broke fastest. Real resilience wasn't positive thinking. It was a capacity to sit with unbearable reality and find meaning within it, not despite it. Modern toxic positivity inverts this completely. Someone shares pain, and instead of presence, you get platitudes. Instead of, "I'm here with you in this," you get, "Look on the bright side." It's not comfort. It's abandonment disguised as encouragement. Watch what happens when you're struggling and someone responds with toxic positivity. They're not connecting with your pain. They're deflecting from it. "Everything happens for a reason" means, "I'm uncomfortable with your suffering and need you to stop talking about it." "Just stay positive" means, "Your feelings make me anxious." Here's what Frankl knew. Real empathy requires a capacity to sit with another person's pain without trying to fix it, minimize it, or redirect it. Toxic positivity is empathy bankruptcy. It's what people do when they lack the emotional capacity to simply be present with difficulty. This is why it feels so lonely. You're not being met. You're being managed. Your pain is being treated as a problem to solve rather than an experience to witness, using enlightenment to avoid being human. Toxic positivity often wears spiritual clothing. Meditation that becomes dissociation. Gratitude that becomes guilt. Manifestation that becomes victim blaming. But toxic positivity inverts even this. It takes what was meant as playful non-attachment and weaponizes it into emotional suppression. "Don't take things seriously" becomes, "Your feelings are invalid." Non-attachment becomes disconnection. You see this in spiritual communities constantly. Someone shares struggle and receives. You're creating your own reality. You manifested this. You're stuck in ego. Each response uses spiritual concepts to shame rather than support, to bypass rather than process. Think about how this shows up in you. When you feel anger, do you immediately try to transcend it? When you're sad, do you rush to gratitude practice before allowing the sadness to move through? You're not being spiritual. You're spiritually bypassing, using enlightenment concepts to avoid feeling. Here's what's actually meant. Not that pain doesn't matter, but that you don't have to add suffering to pain by resisting it. Toxic positivity does the opposite. It adds shame, guilt, and inadequacy to whatever you're already feeling. This is why the most spiritual people often seem the most fragmented. They've mastered the language of consciousness while avoiding actual consciousness. But here's where Jung's wisdom becomes truly liberating, where understanding transforms into integration. Everything I've described is operating unconsciously in people who practice toxic positivity. They're avoiding their shadow while calling it light, bypassing empathy while calling it help, using spirituality to escape humanity. You now see the mechanisms, and conscious awareness changes everything. Real positivity doesn't deny darkness. It integrates it. It doesn't rush past pain. It sits with it. It doesn't use optimism as avoidance. It finds meaning through acceptance, not despite reality. While others weaponize positivity to avoid feeling, you'll develop the capacity to be present with all emotions, yours and others. While they spiritually bypass, you'll ground your consciousness in actual human experience. While they shame people for struggling, you'll offer the gift of genuine presence. This is what Jung called holding the tension of opposites, the capacity to acknowledge both light and dark, joy and pain, without needing to eliminate either. Not toxic positivity, not toxic negativity, just reality, just humanity, just truth. The truly evolved person doesn't deny that life includes suffering. They don't pretend pain doesn't exist. They've developed a psychological capacity to sit with discomfort, their own and others, without needing to fix, minimize, or redirect it while they're performing wellness. You'll be practicing wholeness. And wholeness requires darkness integrated, not denied. Remember that moment from the beginning when someone dismissed your pain with just think positive? Here's what you see now. They weren't helping. They were protecting themselves from feeling your discomfort. Their positivity wasn't for you. It was for them. Jung's final wisdom. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. He understood that unintegrated shadow doesn't disappear when you deny it with forced optimism. It goes underground, and from there it directs everything. Your relationships, your authenticity, your capacity for genuine connection. Here's a truth that brings peace. Life includes suffering. This will never change. No amount of positive thinking eliminates pain. No manifestation practice prevents loss. No high vibration shields you from grief. You can only accept it. And in that acceptance, you find freedom. Freedom to feel the full range of human emotion without shame. Freedom to be present with others' pain without needing to fix it. Freedom to stop performing wellness and start experiencing wholeness. This week, notice when toxic positivity arises in you or others. When someone shares difficulty, resist the urge to fix it with optimism. Just say, "That sounds really hard. I'm here." When you feel difficult emotions, don't rush to gratitude. Just feel them fully, without judgment. Write in the comments, "I'm choosing presence over positivity." Jung spent his life showing that consciousness requires integrating darkness, not denying it. Stop weaponizing light against shadow. Stop using positivity to avoid humanity. Accept the full spectrum, and finally become whole.